dive into that. What's up, everybody, and welcome back. We're here to do another podcast, and we'll get to our topic in just a moment. But before that, we just got to talk about some things happening within the challenge sphere. As last night, as we're recording this on a Thursday night, last night would have been episode 4 of the Challenge All Stars Rivals. And from what it seems like, the ratings, at least last week, are trending upwards. Wasn't like the challenge number 2 on the cable televised ratings or something?
It was MTV's second most viewed broadcast of the week. Take that for what it is. I mean, it's not a bad thing. For sure, it's not bad. But if you see any commercials for All Stars Rivals, they all talk about, or they're all like, set your DVR. So clearly, these metrics aren't that important to MTV if they're telling you to set your DVR and not watch it live. So take everything with a grain of salt. But yes, it is trending upward.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good because, we're already 4 episodes deep into the season. And, Adam and Steve take out another team. I think with this so far, I am enjoying this season for the most part, but it do feel like the episodes kind of just come and go really fast. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that so far, I like it. And I like a lot of the people that we're seeing, but it seems like they kind of ruffled feathers with fans by putting new school people on the show. Mm-hmm. And 4 episodes in, we really haven't seen anything from any of them other than maybe Faisal and Amber. Beyond that, I'm not seeing Melissa do much of anything other than impersonate Nicole. And I like Melissa, but I'm just, we're not seeing it.
Yeah, I mean, you actually do make a good point. It kind of does feel like all the newer people are kind of honestly wallpaper for the most part. I mean, I'm trying to. So we obviously know how the staple is whoever gets eliminated, that's usually who gets the spotlight treatment on that episode. You can kind of tell based on the edit who's going home. Like yesterday with Ashley at the beginning of the episode, they made it pretty clear that she was going to be going home that episode, especially Anissa as well. But it does feel like a lot of people are kind of blurring into the background. Like Shane's been kind of, honestly, even nowhere to be found.
Yeah, Davon. I kind of forget that she's on the show, and Davon is a certified reality TV legend. She's all over the internet, big deal. On this season, she's just kind of in the background. She won't even say a curse word.
Well, she's on her quest of following God, so.
I mean, more power to you, but I don't know. I would expect that she would be a focal point, at least in advertisements, because she's a big name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think, too, I would really like for them to do away with the stars twist. For me personally, it is called the Star Twist, right?
Yeah.
Did I get okay? I just wanted to make sure they're not still calling things skulls, but
yeah, I think it's a little bit stagnant this season so far. I don't mind the Star Twist, but the fact that Adam and Steve have no power beyond keeping their star, whereas on All Stars 4. When Steve held the star and won, he could take one and redistribute it. You're going to get the same people thrown in over and over and over because winning gives them no additional power.
Right.
Whereas, if this was All Stars 4 rules, Adam and Steve would have taken Leroy and Devin's star and given it to Katie and Veronica.
I would have liked if they did something on, what was it, War of the Worlds 1, where if you win that elimination, you can't go in the following elimination. Wasn't it? You get the relic or something like that?
Yeah, whatever they call the little thing, it was the relic, but who cares what it's called? But yes, that was a rule.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind something like that, but I'm not a fan of these newer star twists that they've been doing on All-Stars. So I'm trying to think. It was just this season, and then I'm pretty sure last season's the one they did the star twist, right? And they didn't do that the first 3 All-Stars?
They did not, no.
Okay.
There was a star twist on All-Stars 3, but it was a different twist. And it really didn't mean much.
Right. So I would just honestly, I would love if they just did a traditional format where it's just like, and sprinkle in some like, if you're going to do a twist involving an elimination, have it at least like be impactful where the team that comes back from elimination could at least like be rewarded rather than just like we're seeing now, which is they win an elimination, they're not really getting much power at all, and then they're going back into an elimination.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have some twist, I would like for them to at least give some leverage to the teams that are going into elimination, and it kind of then would in turn raise the stakes in the daily challenges and the just overall social gameplay, because then you can't just go ahead and keep throwing the same team in every time. Yeah.
I mean, I always kind of see the vision coming into the season, and then this is why they shouldn't have cast Devin, because he's going to figure out how to manipulate these little formats and these rules to work in his advantage, but someone figures out how to break it. That kind of seems like what's happening here.
What do you think about Devin on an all-star type? I guess like it technically wouldn't even really consider this like an old. Well, I guess it's still like in its nature would still be the old school show, but like it's really not anymore. Like, what do you think of guys like Devin now kind of ingratiated into this particular genre? Do you feel like it's a fit, or do you feel like...
No. But here's the thing. I think he's a very strategic player, and there is a time and place for that. And I think that when you start integrating that level of intensity into All-Stars, it kind of moves away from the spirit of the game and what it was intended to be. Like, but at the same time, you have people like Frank coming in, and I would never have a problem with Frank doing like an All-Star season. And I do think that that's a similar level of gameplay that Frank would bring. So this season, I don't think it's a complete mismatch, but I also don't think it's a perfect fit for someone like Devin to be in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think, too, that's one thing I was about to say. If you notice, they actually, like, you know how, like, the first, like, 4 All-Star seasons and confessionals in the bottom, like, left corner, they had that ticker where it was, like, it showed, like, their first ever cast photo, like from 2000. Let's say if it's like John A, right? It's got a photo of her from like Rivals, where it was like where she appeared for the first time. They haven't done that this season because
I haven't noticed that, and those are like the little things that make me upset when they go away for whatever reason. I will say though, what I love about this season, even though it hasn't done a whole lot for us yet, is that the cast members don't have to pack their bags and they get to come back to the house to pack. So hopefully we get some like bigger explosions from that.
That would be cool, actually. And that kind of reminds me too, because I'm trying to remember. I know on the Gauntlet too they did that. That's the one that does come to mind when I think of...
think it was Fresh Meat that changed the tides on that, because Fresh Meat was the season where they had to like pack their bags. It was the first time they went to exile, and then the loser would not come back. And they kind of made a big deal out of that because of the first eliminations were the Austin kids, and they were all like married to each other and fraternizing with enemies and doing all that stuff. And they had to say their long goodbyes. So I think Fresh Meat is where the tide turned.
Yeah. Well, folks, we're gonna get into today's topic because we're all in the spirit of Valentine's Day was a week ago, and we all love nostalgia. So in the spirit of love and then in the spirit of nostalgia, we're going to be doing, I'm paraphrasing here because it's probably going to be more than 10, but we're going to say 10 random returns that we would love to see on All Stars specifically. So, with this in mind, basically our thought process for randomness would kind of be like an out of nowhere return. So, for example, somebody who, or I'll give a few examples here, like Coral and Landon, they're two names we haven't seen in quite some time. And while we do agree, and many would obviously agree, that them returning would be seen as pretty shocking and out of nowhere, they're still very important pieces of the challenge history and lore. So it's a lot different than, say, like, just, I don't want to give an example because I might end up wanting to later reveal one of my names, but let's say, like, for an example, like Dustin, like, were to return, that would be like a lot more out of nowhere than, like, let's say, like a Landon. You know what I mean? So with our thought process, we tried to steer more towards like people who we don't know whether or not they're getting a call. Whereas, somebody like Paula Walnuts, it's entirely up to her whether or not she wants to come back. Her phone is definitely on speed dial of MTV in production. So, yeah.
Yeah. I went with random ones.
I'm excited for this personally because this is kind of off the hip. I just thought of this like yesterday. So,
yeah, and I will say that pretty much every season of All Stars has given me at least like one random ass name that I just thought that they were cooked. They were never coming back. They were, MTV was done with them, and then we get like Laura, either the blue on All Stars 4 or like Leah on All Stars 2. Like,
would you say Hisela was the really out of nowhere return on All Stars 1?
All Stars 1 had quite a few, but Hisela definitely checks the box. I don't think that she's the only one. Like, I would have never thought we would see Laterian again. Even though he did a few seasons, it just seemed like his last season, The Gauntlet, he got like probably somewhere under one confessional. Like, yeah. You did not hear a word from him. That's an exaggeration, but like obviously it seemed like his story arc just kind of tapered out.
What about Tech? Would you have been surprised to see him again?
Yes and no. I think MTV probably stopped barking up that tree a while ago prior to All Stars, but I think that he would have gotten more opportunities and he would have done more challenge seasons like Battle of the Sexes and Gauntlets, Infernos, that type of thing, if he said yes. He probably just said no one too many times and then the phone stopped ringing.
Yeah. And I would say Ayana probably for All Stars 2 would be probably the most out of nowhere, and then you could make the argument on All Stars 3 for somebody like Cynthia or Ronnie. Naya even. Actually, I mean...
Well, Naya was out of the blue because she didn't fit the theme.
Well, yeah, but nobody at that point, we were kind of holding out hope, unsure if she would ever return, and then she did, obviously.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So. And then All Stars 4 gave us quite a bit of out of nowhere returns. Yeah, like a lot, actually, a lot. I would say. Yeah.
I mean, having Jay reappear on the show was not on my bingo card.
Yeah, I mean, you had that. I mean, at the time, it's obviously revisionist history now, but Adam Larson and Avery were shocking to see. We also had, Tyree, I think, was getting calls, but he was, I guess, on the more surprising side. So we had no shortage of people returning on, All Stars in these last few installments. So with that in mind, we're going to give quite a few names here today for who we would feel excited to see. And I got to preface by saying some of these, or most in their cases, aren't people that necessarily lit the world on fire the last time we saw them, or I don't even know if I would even consider them an objective good casting decision. This is more so what would tickle my fancy if on a random Thursday afternoon I'm scrolling through Twitter and I just see that Gamer Vev reveals this person's name. I would likely be excited over it just for the sheer like stupidity behind it, or just randomness behind it. Nostalgia is one hell of a thing, and so with that being said, would you like me to go first, or would you like to
go for it? Take it away.
All right, so should we do this? How do you want to do it? Should we go should I reveal a guy and a girl, and then you go with a guy and a girl, or a guy, or whatever? I don't know. I don't really have a lot.
You just say what you want to say, and I'll follow suit.
Sure. Okay. So I guess I'll go with my number one. This person, since we're talking about lighting the world on fire, their last time we saw them, they didn't really light anything on fire. However, their first 3 seasons that they did, they lit everything on fire. I don't know what version we would get of this individual in 2025, but what I do know is if I saw their name pop up, I would probably have a crash out moment. That's Ty.
As you were describing it, I immediately knew who you were going to say. Yeah, I mean, he's a person that did the show. That's for sure.
No, but the thing with Ty is I really don't know what version of him we would get. You know what I mean? Like I said, cutthroat through X's, he was definitely an addition to the show. He gave you content to work with. His real world season, if you want to take it a step further than that, I mean, he was very heavily involved in that and had his fair share of, controversial moments. And then he pretty much hid from the cameras on Rivals too.
Yeah.
Him and Leroy, I would say, underperformed as a team based on how you would expect from two guys. And that was pretty much it. He pretty much wasn't involved in anything on Rivals 2, and then we just never saw him again.
Yeah, I would be cool with seeing him. The only one caveat I have is I do not want him with Emily. I feel like they're always entangled together. Even on Rivals 2, the few storylines he got, he's just kind of with Emily, and I would like to see him try to spread his wings on his own. I mean, he did try to spread his wings on Rivals 1, and we saw how that worked out. He almost got punched in the face by Adam, but
that's still a really just ridiculous fight.
And that was episode 1. We used to get things like that. We used to get we used to eat on day 1.
Now we don't eat at all. We're starving.
Yeah.
Okay, you could go ahead and list the name if you'd like.
Sure. So this is one. I told Mike this, but I'm a big person on bringing back the old school, and I like people who come back and have never met TJ before. So their whole challenge career prior to their return is in Era 1, and I picked Chadwick from Battle of the Seasons, Australia. He kind of got a rough shake on his first season because he did pretty well at the beginning, but he was entangled in this inner circle drama, and he had his wife, who they're still together. 20 some odd years later, they're still together. But I remember on All Stars 3 or 4, he was rumored to be on for a hot minute and then got taken off the cast, and he still seems like he's ready to roll.
I feel like that was All Stars 4. Was it 4? It was one of the... He got revealed, didn't he? And they took him off.
For a second. I mean, I don't think he was ever really there. Some people say yes and back out. I don't think he was ever really there. I could be wrong.
Well, I mean, I would actually be all for seeing him again because, I don't know what he would be like today, but something in me tells me that he could be a messy, male figure. Not messy in the, the traditional sense, not a Shane type of messy, but somebody that in the thick of the competition or gameplay would
I get Adam Larson vibes.
Yes. yes, the
Like, he's not
perfect
going to
example.
bite his tongue, but he's also not going to, like, call you expletives for no reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, since you mentioned, I actually knew where I was going to go with my next reveal, but since solely because you said Chadwick, that is the perfect segue because, we need somebody to combat the strong-willed nature and the holier than thou kind of aura that Chadwick has, and that's somebody who definitely was not afraid to bite their tongue with him in particular. And I've got Baloo from Battle of the Season. She technically has appeared on one season, so she would classify. And
not only do I want her back, she can bring her daughter, the one that was on Battle of the Seasons. Her daughter can just be an all-star. I mean, we talk about that baby more than we talk about a lot of the people that were on Battle of the Seasons. So, yeah, I'm all for it.
That would be insane. I think that would probably take the cake, possibly, for the most unexpected appearance in an all-star season thus far, possibly.
And that baby is probably, I mean, I say baby, at this point, 23 years old?
Probably they're around
no
my
more.
Yeah.
That was film. I mean, the baby was probably.
That was during 2001.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
24, 25.
20, yeah, right around there. You can go ahead and list off another name, though.
Well, this person is definitely not as outspoken as Baloo, but I would like to see Lori from Real World back to New York and made it to the end of Battle of the Sexes. She seems like someone from the limited presence I've seen online who still has somewhat of an interest in the franchise and is in decent shape and wouldn't give production a hard no if they gave her a call.
I'm pretty sure she's interested, isn't she?
She might, a lot of people, not a lot of people, but a good number of people are interested, and then they get the call and they entertain it, but they also have lives. It's not about the vacation necessarily, so they can't always say yes. But I hope that she's getting the calls.
I could have sworn that she was posting stuff on her story from like a couple of years ago. I think she was like watching whether it might have been All Stars that she was watching or something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, she'd probably be a pretty good addition and especially a consolation of not getting Coral.
I mean, I pray that the tides turn on that one, but yeah. Until we don't get her, we need some representation from that season.
Well, I'm gonna say for my next one, I should probably do a guy since I just did a girl with my last one. Let me see which way I want to go here. So, for my next guy, we were just talking about lighting the world on fire. I don't know if this guy necessarily lit the world on fire himself, but he was definitely involved in a wildfire that Amanda Garcia started on Invasion of the Champions, and that's Bruno.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
yeah, he could have like a J All-Star 4 type of arc, maybe.
Yeah, I think that his time on the show was way too short-lived because he was a hothead on his Real World season, and we should have gotten more from him. But I don't know. It just kind of like sometimes we get people who are like big deals on their Real World season, and then they just kind of like fizzle out on the challenge. And he struck me as one of those people, but I have to believe there's more to his story.
I think he was getting quite a bit of calls in the years that followed, actually. Like, apparently he was still getting calls, according to him, up until Total Madness. So,
I mean, I believe it, but I also think that when they're trying to build casts, they the initial call doesn't mean that much. They're just trying to get a roster of names they can play with, and they'll chop people eventually.
Yeah, they want to get a roster of names they could play with just so they could put Nani, Casey, CT, Tori, and Devin on, and that's it.
Well, it's what the people want.
Wow. People are me and you, so we're the ones that want it. These are all our favorite people I just listed. So
well, speaking of hot takes, I put Casey Clark on my list. I'm just kidding. I did not put her on there, but this is probably my hottest take. One person I would love to see get another chance, and I think he could have like the Jay style redemption arc, is Dave from Real World Hollywood, who ducked out of the island. Now, I will say, if he stuck around on that island, best case scenario in my eyes is he makes it to the end with a key and gets it stolen at the 11th hour. So he's a winner for leaving that show. Like, nothing good was going to come from sticking around, and people can call him a quitter all day, but that show, being on the island, was the challenge. If no one quits, it makes it seem like it's a cakewalk for the cast. And him quitting actually gives some credibility to what they were trying to do on the island. So I don't think he should be shunned for that decision to leave.
Yeah, that entire just concept was a dumpster fire. And yeah, I mean, he's probably, I could have sworn he was eerily close to getting on Duel 2. I could be wrong. I could have sworn I read something. But yeah, no, I would definitely not be opposed to seeing him again. I actually toyed with the idea of putting him on. Just the Hollywood representation is very few and far. Well, I shouldn't even say few and far between. It's literally non-existent. But with that in mind, that should probably segue into my next one. And I lumped these three together because, we're gonna call this portion of the video the Hollywood Vortex, because pretty much you take your pick, production, if you somehow stumble upon this video. Literally cast or try your hardest to get any one of these three, although I'm pretty sure one of them I'm not too confident is accepting it anytime soon because they're a pretty successful actor now or actress now. That would be Brittany from Hollywood. But I pretty much put Kimberly, Brianna, and Brittany I lumped them all together. I would love to see any of, or at least like 2 out of the 3 back. That would be great in my opinion. I mean, could you imagine in 2025 if we got Brianna and Kim, they popped up on this All-Star season of Rivals right now? Like, that would have like fueled every bit of nostalgia that I have.
I mean, I probably, and I'm not even kidding here, I probably would have gone back and rewatched Real World Hollywood and Paramount.
That's actually a really good watch. It actually is one of my favorite seasons.
For sure, yeah. Like they have like some very real animosity there. I would love to see them back. I'm tired of our only representation from Real World Hollywood being Janelle, who was on the season, not as an official cast member. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm on board with any or all 3 of them.
Mm-hmm. Well, the floor is yours.
Well, I can't match someone from Real World Hollywood, so I'm not going to use that as a segue. But another older school name, someone that I really like, but got like a really bad rep on her last season, but I would love to see back, is Elka from Real World Boston.
Right.
She was great on Battle of the Seasons. I loved her on the Boston season. And then I still liked her on the Gauntlet, but they kind of painted her in a negative light. And I think that if she's willing to do it, she's probably the type that would at least put up a fight on the show. I think that she's someone that we would see a lot of growth personally, and it would be interesting to see where she's in life. Like, I think that part of the All-Stars magic from the original seasons was getting the older names back and seeing where they are and how they've evolved through the years. And she's someone that I'm kind of curious about.
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw her pop up on like a Battle of the Seasons with like Cyrus or somebody. I feel like that's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I could do a trifecta of Real World Boston Girls, Genesis, Elka, even Montana. I'll take it. I'll take any of them.
Yeah, I mean, Montana and Beth on rival.
I mean, if we thought that she had no luck with, or if we thought John A. and Beth had no luck,
Well,
Beth and Montana.
Speaking of no luck, I mean, we talked about the island a moment ago. This was this person's only season. They finally get the opportunity to go for a second season, and then their team gets sent home at the airport. I've got Ashley Robson from Real World Sydney. This would be completely out of nowhere, but based on what we got from her, the small bit on the island, she seemed like she would be like a decent competitor. I mean, didn't she hurt her toe or something like that?
Yeah, the only thing the challenge ever gave her was like 3 stitches in the toe. That's all she got from her experience on the show.
Yeah, and then she still ended up competing in that daily challenge, I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And then she and Dunbar got into a fight on the island over the food portions. And then, yeah, that was pretty much it. But she looked like she was in really great shape, like in that one photo that leaked online.
I remember Isaac had said at one point on some podcast, it might have been yours, it might have been someone else's, that she had been training for, not like training for the challenge, but she had made fitness a priority in her life.
Right.
For a couple of years leading up to Battle of the Seasons, and she came in looking fit, looking ready to go.
Yeah, and Kellyanne allegedly was in the best shape of her freaking life during that. We would have gotten Team Sydney.
And they had the insane games that season, so Isaac would have done great.
I mean, Dunbar would have been a 2-time champ. And
yeah. But we can't spend all our time reminiscing on what could have been with that season. But I do have one name that he debuted on Battle of the Seasons, and I would love to see him back. We haven't seen him in over a decade now, but I would like to see Preston get another shake at one of these shows.
That's one of my names as well.
Yeah, I think that he did really well on a lot of the daily challenges and doesn't really get credit for it. I mean, 2 seasons he was partnered with Knight, and let's be honest, Knight's strategy was to excel in the social game.
Mm-hmm.
That's how he was going to do well on the show. And on Free Agents, he was more of like a middle of the pack player, but he didn't have any really low lows. And he had a couple of shining moments, but he wasn't like stunningly amazing. But I think he could actually do well.
Yeah, I mean, Free Agents was probably the closest we'll ever have gotten to seeing Preston separated from his real world, because he always got bunched in with the Jemmy and Knight saga, I feel like. But because Knight wasn't on Free Agents and Jemmy went home the first episode, we pretty much got Preston by himself for the majority of his time on Free Agents.
Yeah, there's a rumor, and it might have come from your podcast, it might have come from somewhere else, who knows, that Preston wasn't originally on the Free Agents cast, and he thinks that they dropped Knight after he punched Frank during the live reunion, and then replaced him with replaced him with Preston as like almost like a tormenting moment. I don't know if there's any credibility to that. I don't even think Knight. I think Knight got under Preston's skin, but I don't think that they really had like a strong hatred for each other.
No, it was like a brother type relationship.
Yeah, it was like you kind of knew that they secretly had each other's back, but also like they were gonna argue if you put them in a band together.
Right. Yeah, I would not mind seeing that at all. And I feel like New Orleans, that's another season I really do enjoy as well, is the second New Orleans.
I loved that season when it aired, but I also looked at that season when it aired, and I'm like, these people are not going to do well on the challenge. The only exception might have been Ashley, but she never really got on. Maybe Eric.
Eric, I feel like would have been pretty good. I mean, he wouldn't. I don't feel like he would have adapted well socially, but he was another one that looked like he'd be like a pretty good like athlete, at least like a Nelson type of athlete or something like that. Ryan Leslie, obviously, he wouldn't have been good at this. She would have been like sort of like a David Edwards type of character if he ever got on the show, where everybody just like public enemy number one, but he would have made great television.
Yeah, I think he would have shown up for the show and not realized that he was like expected to compete, and people might keep him around for a few episodes just because he's easy, he's a layup, or he could like completely blow our minds. Who knows?
Preston actually did say on my podcast that him and Ryan Leslie were supposed to be on Rivals 1, but they got dropped for some reason.
I don't know. I think that's a huge mistake if they drop them. The only reason is I could see one or both of them being like wishy-washy with their commitment to the show.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll go ahead and say another name of mine. Let's see. So I lumped these two together as well. These are two people who also made their debut on Battle of the Seasons 2012. I lumped them together mainly. I feel like they would both be out of nowhere, I guess, technically by nature, but because one of them has recently started appearing like at a lot of like challenge fan events, and that would be Trey. Mm-hmm. He may seem like a little more likelier now, but again, this is just me speculating. I have no idea if he's receiving calls or not. I have him and Rob from his same season linked together. Yeah, I would like to see either one of these two pop up, quite frankly.
Yeah, I'm on board with it. Both of them kind of seem like they could have been bigger names on the franchise, but then they just didn't. And there's not really like a good explanation.
I think production kind of just like fell out of favor with Trey once they saw because Trey was pretty dramatic on his Real World season. And he had like a temper, but like on the challenge, I would say like was basically pretty reserved. Like he was kind of wallpaper on Rivals 2.
On Rivals 2, he wasn't a big presence, but he actually played an interesting role on Battle of the Seasons because he was the reason that St. Thomas wouldn't commit to like the Rookie Revolution Alliance, you know? Mm-hmm. So I don't think he's like the worst person to bring back, not at all. But I think what might have been like the nail in their coffin was one or both of them were not willing to compete with their exes or Battle of the Exes season. Coming out of St. Thomas, that was like their big story arc. They all like hooked up with each other.
Yeah.
But speaking of St. Thomas, I have LaToya on my list.
It's another one of mine.
Yeah. She's done 3 seasons, and she's giving us some memorable one-liners. I definitely appreciate her commentary, but I feel like her departure on
Dirty 30
and Invasion it doesn't sit well with me. Like,
yeah, Dirty 30, we didn't really get to see much at all of her. Invasion, she gave us a little bit of like something in the short time that she was there. I mean, she got with Nelson.
But she had the dumbest elimination where they had to like climb up.
The Sylvia one, right?
Yeah, they had to climb up some like stairs with monks and retrieve a statue.
It was one of those things where they timed it, and then at the end said the numbers.
Yeah. They put it. I never trust the times on the screen. So if they're not racing next to each other, I don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
So
well,
I'd be bitter.
Yeah, I could go ahead and name somebody that also lost that same exact elimination. I don't necessarily know if this person would add a lot, but I've seen like a lot of their Are You the One season, and I still can't help but like feel like there's some bit of like potential in there, and that's Anthony Bartolotti. Hope I said that correct. Um, Marie's ex, Anthony. That
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, he was like basically the star of his Are You the One season. Like he was main character. Like if you were to draw up like who the main, he was essentially main character. He came from the same Are You the One season as Dario, Nate, Brandon, the one who quit. Like, and he was the main character essentially. And then he came on to like he waited a bit before doing the challenge. Like we saw a few of his Are You the One people make their debuts on Bloodlines and Rivals 3. We didn't see him until Invasion, so I think production must have really wanted him for them to kind of wait and get him on Invasion. And then obviously he didn't go on to really do a whole lot in terms of I mean he had a showmance with Marie, but besides that he was pretty much just like yeah.
Well, I didn't put him on my list because he blocked me on Twitter.
Did he really?
Yeah. I didn't say anything that mean. I was like, oh, look at that monk walking up the stairs faster than Anthony. He's like, block. I'm just kidding, though. I didn't put anyone from Are You the One on my list.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I get it. That's not the biggest presence. But he actually said, so I interviewed him a couple years ago, and he claims that they had asked him to quarantine to be on Double Agents, at least as an alternate at the minimum. So who knows if he actually would. Probably not. I mean, Derrick Henry quarantined, and so did Asoff, and they didn't use either of them two. So I'd find it hard. Yeah.
They probably wanted some people to quarantine who could like flee the country on the drop of a hat, and they're like, "You guys have nothing going on," so they did it.
That guy Mark Jansen too.
Yeah,
from Big Brother.
Yeah, he's someone that I think would have been very, very interesting. He was a big character on his X on the Beach season, which was the one with Marie, I think.
Yeah, that was the same one.
But he was like going around flirting with the girl from Danity Kane. Like he had a story. So another name I have, I wouldn't be surprised if you have this one too. And this is a complete 180, is someone who has more vowels in their name than challenge appearances, and that's Aya.
I do.
The Real World Cancun. Yeah, I had a feeling. She will always be a legendary competitor in my eyes because she gets a reference on the show 30 Rock. They call her out. But I think that she's someone that they kind of expected to be a bigger presence in the challenge world coming from her Real World season, and it just kind of never happened.
Yeah, and I feel like, honestly, she would be like one of those Hisela or Ayana type returns if they put her on the show in that same similar arc in vein, where they come out of nowhere, but they like have a big presence and they're not afraid to kind of give everything they have. And I feel like she would be pretty messy, and yeah, we kind of need that.
Yeah, I feel like her coming on a season would be probably contingent upon who else from her Real World season would do it, because we've seen a huge Cancun presence on All Stars. We have Johnny, Derek, Jasmine.
Emily Fitzpatrick quarantined for season 2 of All Stars.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, I think Cancun is one of the only seasons that's been represented on all 5 All Stars.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Probably like Road Rules of the Quest has also been, but Campus Crawl probably. I don't know if they were on 4. Anyways, they've been on every single season.
Yeah, I feel like Aya not being on is a big missed opportunity. But next up for me, let me me see. Okay. So I actually I'll go with a champ here. So this actually, I tried to steer. I barely got any champs on this list at all, by the way, but I've got two, and they're both female. I got Kina. I don't think this is ever happening, to be quite frank with you. Believe it or not, people, this is actually, I think, the first time I'm going to say this. I actually managed to get a hold of Kina like a number of years ago, because this is a big interview request, and she wouldn't even do an interview like with me, and she pretty much flat out said, I have no desire to like acknowledge that part of my life anymore. She's a doctor now. I'm pretty sure, like, I forget exactly like what type of doctor. She might be a therapist, to be honest with you, like a psych doctor. So flat out, this is likely never happening. At least I don't think. But still fun to kind of like throw out there and see if it comes back to you, type of thing.
Yeah, I turned on Pluto TV the other day, and The Duel was on, and I was like, yeah, that's a name that we will never see again. I think that Susie from Road Rules multiple seasons still has somewhat of a relationship with her, because they got close on Viewer's Revenge.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of reiterated what you said. She's just past that phase of her life. And I respect that, but I would like to see her back as well.
Yeah, I mean, I might as well just list the other person who's kind of like goes hand in hand with her is Cara Zavaleta. I had as well. This is somebody who's definitely not a therapist. She was actually did some other ventures, but still, nonetheless, somebody I would greatly like to see as well.
And coincidentally, another great friend of Susie. Go figure.
She knows how to pick her friends.
Yeah. I think that she is not super likely, but also not in the realm of like impossible.
She's definitely I would say on the likely scale, she's probably about a 40 or 45%. Not a true 50-50, but not an impossible either.
She strikes me as the type that would be like, okay, if Susie's going to be there and like people I know are going to be there and you have wine ready for me, I'll show up. Like, that's the vibe I get from her.
Yeah, I think she's just like nervous or something. I could have sworn I heard.
I don't know why. But
yeah, I mean, if I looked like that, I would leave my house at every given moment.
I mean, yeah, I don't blame you. So I only have two more names, and coincidentally, they are both from the two seasons that you just mentioned, or the origin seasons. One name I have, and he only did one challenge season ever, is Nick from Road Rules Viewer's Revenge, or Road Rules Extreme. Sorry. Oh, okay. And he was on Battle of the Sexes too. From what I can tell now, he's like a cyclist. He's in great shape. He probably gave us our first ever like inkling of a gay flirtation romance of anything on the challenge. I mean, I think he danced with Shane, and that's about the extent of it. But like, that's the only thing you might remember him from. But I think that if he came back, he'd be a strong contender to have like a big redemption arc.
That's crazy, because when you were first saying Nick and only did one challenge season, I thought you were about to say Nick from Hollywood. That's why
he did two seasons. The Ruins and the
yeah. I mean, I think a collective like 2 episodes between the 2 seasons, but you know,
hey,
I lost to Ryan in an elimination, so
yeah, and he lost to Wes. Yeah. He's. I did not put him on my list, but I also wouldn't like be super opposed to it.
Well, because it's one of those things that's so random and like completely like that return would be so random to the point where it's like honestly like you could have a laugh about it.
Yeah,
because it's just like, what are we doing here? But sure, I guess. If you were to told me that out of all the real world Hollywood guys, that one of them would go on to do 2 seasons, and that collectively, like, let's put this into perspective for a second. Nick did 2 seasons technically, and then the other rest of the guys there would have been Dave, Will, and Greg. Well, and Joey, I guess technically, although Joey did end up later passing away. But still, all four of those other guys outside of Nick, you would totally assume, like, at the very least, one of them would go on to do, like, multiple seasons. If you were to say that Nick did more challenge seasons by himself than the other four guys on Hollywood combined, I would have spit out my drink. Like, that is a wild stat to think about.
I mean, we talked about Real World New Orleans Jemmy season as being a season like I don't see anyone doing the challenge. I saw so many people on Hollywood doing the challenge. But the thing is, they all thought they were going to be famous.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's
what the challenge.
That was the Hollywood stereotype. That was
evidently, yeah.
Well, I've got a couple of girls left and quite a few guys. I could just kind of list some of them off rapid fire, but I got Mandy from Fresh Meat 2 as an out of nowhere return. She did well on her last few seasons that she did. And she's a finalist. And Cara and Laurel and even Teresa get most of the fanfare from that season, but people forget Mandy was a regular for like 4 seasons in a row. She did Fresh Meat 2, Cutthroat, Rivals 1, and X's 1. So if she popped up on a season, would not bat an eye for me. So
that seems like a return that's kind of out of the blue, but not too wild. So I think it could happen.
Yeah, and then my other girl would have been Nicole R., Nani's cousin.
Mm-hmm.
So she's married now and like seems to have moved on from reality TV, but it's not. That's another one that's not like totally impossible given the fact that her cousin's still like heavily involved.
To be honest, I kind of get Tina vibes from her in the sense that I think she's married and maybe moved on from the show, but she might also like be married and not working and like want the vacation and want the fun.
Yeah, well, if she's gonna be there, I mean, for their own safety, I would hope that these two people aren't there together. But if they're on separate shows, then that's a different story, and that'd be like Nate S., her ex from Rivals 3.
Nate S. now, if you've seen like a recent picture of him, he looks like he doubled the size that he was on Rivals 3 and then ate that person. Like he has bulked up and like he's very muscular, probably gained a few pounds, but like he is, I think if he walked onto the main series challenge, some people their eyes would drop to the ground. They'd be shocked because he's like a whole different person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll just like rapid fire a few more names that I've got, and if you have any comment on any of them, feel free, you can do. So when you were talking about Fresh Meat before, it made me think, and I just randomly had this thought. Do you remember Johnny McBride?
Mm-hmm.
I put him down like at the 11th hour, like literally as we were talking about this. He's somebody who, let's face it, has probably not gotten a call in like over 15 years. I would have to assume. I don't even know if production remembers he did their show, but if he somehow like popped up, I would not mind that.
No, I'd be down with it.
And then sticking with Fresh Meat 2, I lumped these two together. Mainly Pete's one of them, and I only lumped him for this because I put him on so many of my other fantasy casts, so I kind of tried to spread the wealth with something a little bit more, which was Luke. If we had Luke pop up randomly, that would be something that I would be all for. Just because, I mean, he's another second place finalist technically.
Yeah, I feel like I heard somewhere that he recently either had a baby or
Really?
his wife is pregnant, wife, girlfriend, I don't know what his status is, but which is, a very exciting phase of life, but he might be down for the count, and I'm sure he'll have to reject another one of the many calls he gets. But he'd be fun to get back at some point.
And then I have Johnny Riley on here. I don't know. I have nothing really to add about like him in particular. I just think like he was like a regular for like 3 seasons. Well, he technically took Bloodlines off, but felt like 3 seasons in a row. Yeah, he was a regular for a short bit before just kind of like piecing out of the franchise, and then just
I think he's like a cop or something now.
Yeah.
I don't really know.
And he's got a wife and kid.
Well, at least one of those things might prevent him from wanting to do the show again. I kind of give a caveat with him as well. If he comes back, I don't want him to be like entangled in Avery drama.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like with his initial challenge run, he at least had 1 season where he stood on his own.
Yeah, his first season.
Avery never really got that, but I would want him to kind of stand on his own and get his own story arc.
Yeah. And then I have Adam Kuhn. You remember him from X's 2?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I do remember him.
He was an Are You the One guy. He won 3 eliminations, him and his partner, Brittany. And then we never saw him again. Actually, this has actually, I think, been confirmed. He had the choice to do Invasion or Are You the One Second Chances, and he chose Are You the One Second Chances.
Now, to be fair, if I had the choice between living in a house in Australia, which is where they were, or living in a swamp in Thailand, which one do you think I'm going to pick? Well, I don't know if you get that information, but I'm taking the house in Australia.
Well, I mean, yeah, if we're using revisionist history, of course. But, obviously he probably didn't know that. He probably thought he would just be a bigger star, which he was on Are You the One. Well, I mean, like, I don't know. If he kept doing challenges, who knows? Maybe he would have went on to be, like, a big deal. But he was pretty much, like, main character of his Are You the One Second Chances show.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
I do have one more person on my list.
Mm-hmm.
It is the other champion I have, the first being Elka. I think that's the only other champion I had. But this person is Christina from Road Rules South Pacific, who won the Inferno. So she technically has a great record. She's won an elimination. She's won a season. She could be teaching Katie's masterclass of how to win the challenge because they won the same season. She's kind of laid low for a while, but I think that I don't know if she would do it or not, but I feel like she's someone that would come in, probably enjoy the social aspect of it, and could potentially do well.
Not bad. I mean, if we're talking about champions, though, then my last name would have been Jamie Banks.
I'm not even kidding. One of my favorite challenge hookups is Ashley and Jamie because it's just so unserious and funny. Like, I hope that when they look at it, they just laugh because it's just humor. You kind of know that they both know it is, and like that's what a reality TV hookup should be. Just like dumb fun.
We need them on X's. Like an all-star season of X's so bad. In the worst way imaginable.
Yeah. I mean, just like we got a taste last night on episode 4 of All Stars Rival of what that relationship was like when Ashley was talking to her current boyfriend and he was like, I love you. She's like, I don't care.
Like, I don't. Yeah, she said, I don't. Didn't she say, like, I don't give a about how much you love me or something like that?
Yeah.
And then they end the call by saying, oh, I love you.
I get it. She's going through struggles in the game, and I Love You doesn't help with those struggles. I understand where she's coming from, but it's just funny. It's not deep. It's not serious. It's just funny.
Listen, I mean, if any of these ideas come back out into the universe, I would be more than glad. But with that being said, folks, thank you for tuning into another episode. We hope that you continue to enjoy our episodes as well as the episodes on MTV Weekly with the Challenge Rivals. Let's hopefully keep these ratings pushing forward so that way we can maybe get some more of these and some of our ideas actually make it onto the cutting floor. But until then, we'll see you guys next time. And yeah, thank you.
See you later.